I've learned exactly one thing from all my years designing emergency response protocols for container ships in the Gulf of Mexico. The kind of systems that kick in when everything else fails. Just one thing: panic gets people killed. Control keeps them alive. My son, Matthew, was getting married that Saturday. Big venue right on the water in Annapolis. Rented mansion overlooking the bay. The whole thing ran about $78,000, and I was covering 60% of it. That's what Matthew expected. When I was offshore during his childhood, I'd always made up for my absence with money, birthday checks, tuition payments, replacing his car when it got repossessed. Somewhere along the line, I'd trained him to see me as a wallet, not a father. That was on me. What wasn't on me was what he'd become. I woke up around 6:45 a.m. There was a sound coming from the guest bathroom. Muffled. Wrong. The kind of sound that hits you in the gut before your brain catches up. My wife, Eleanor, wasn't in bed beside me. I checked the clock on the nightstand, 6:48 a.m. The ceremony wasn't until noon, but Eleanor was always an early riser, especially when she was stressed. She'd probably been up since 5, running through the day's schedule in her head, worrying about things nobody else would even notice. I pushed open the bathroom door. What I saw made everything stop. Eleanor was kneeling on the cold white marble tile, completely still, her hands pressed against the sides of her head like she was trying to hold herself together. All around her were long strands of silver-white hair. They were everywhere, scattered across the vanity like someone had gutted a pillow, tangled in the brass string cover, stuck to her nightgown like wet leaves after a storm, floating in the shallow puddles of water near the sink. Her head was nearly bare, butchered patches of stubble mixed with random tufts that had been missed. Not a clean shave, not done on purpose. Hacked at, like someone had gone after her with garden shears while blindfolded and laughing. On the sink sat a pair of cordless hair clippers, still tangled with long strands of her silver hair that caught the morning light from the window. Next to the clippers was a handwritten note on pink stationery. It said, "She looks too old for the wedding video. Fixed it. You're welcome." The casual cruelty packed into those words, as if she'd done us a favor. Then I noticed the phone on the vanity, partially hidden behind a bottle of hand soap. Face up, screen still glowing. A live stream app was open, showing the broadcast had ended 11 minutes ago. The stream had been running for nearly an hour. Viewer count at cutoff? 52,000 people. 52,000 strangers had watched my wife get humiliated in real time. I followed a thin black cable running behind a stack of folded towels in the corner. It led to a small camera, about the size of a golf ball, mounted on a suction cup at the exact angle to capture Eleanor's face as she looked into the mirror. Professional placement. Someone had put thought into lighting and angles, getting the best reaction shot. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. This was produced, planned, set up for maximum views. Eleanor whispered something so quiet I almost missed it. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am too old. That sentence hit me harder than anything I'd seen that morning. I've been through enough shipboard incidents to know the first rule of any crisis: preserve evidence. Document before you act. Don't touch anything you might need later. Don't let emotion mess up the chain of custody. I pulled out my own phone and started recording video. I captured the bathroom from multiple angles, the hair covering the floor like a crime scene, the clippers on the vanity with strands still tangled in the blades. Everything. Then I opened my email app and sent the video directly to my brother-in-law, Robert. Robert had been a county sheriff's deputy for 26 years before retiring last spring. He lived about 40 minutes from the venue in a small house near Richmond. He'd know exactly what to do with evidence like this. He'd know what would hold up and what wouldn't. Subject line: wedding day. Eleanor was assaulted while sleeping. Evidence attached. I need you here. I knelt beside Eleanor on the cold tile. Put my hand on her shoulder. Felt her shaking under the thin fabric of her nightgown. That hair had been with her for 29 years. She'd started growing it out after her mother passed away in 1996. Her mother had been her best friend growing up, used to brush Eleanor's hair every night when she was a little girl in Richmond. Long, slow strokes while they watched television together, talking about school and friends and what they wanted from life. After the funeral, after we'd driven home in silence from the cemetery with the smell of flowers and dirt still on our clothes, Eleanor made a quiet promise to herself. She never told me about it directly. I only found out years later from her sister at a family gathering. She swore she'd never cut that hair again. It was the last physical connection she had to her mother. And now it was all over the bathroom floor. I helped Eleanor to her feet. Her legs were shaky. I walked her back to the bed in the main room, one arm around her waist to keep her steady. I wrapped her in the thickest terry cloth robe we'd brought. Pulled the heavy curtains close to block the morning light. "I'm going to handle this," I said. "All of it. You don't need to do anything right now except rest." She nodded, eyes distant. That 1,000-yard stare I'd seen on sailors after close calls at sea. She didn't ask how I'd handle it. 29 years of marriage. She knew that when I said something was handled, it got handled. I stepped into the hallway around 7:20 a.m. The mansion was waking up around me. Staff in black uniforms moved through the corridors, carrying huge arrangements of white lilies and roses. Everything looked perfect, camera-ready, the kind of staged fancy that only exists for an audience. The whole place had been turned into a set, and I was walking through it like a stagehand who'd wandered into the wrong show. I walked toward the honeymoon suite where Matthew and his fiancée Chloe were staying. The carpet was thick enough to swallow my footsteps completely. I moved in silence. Their door was cracked open, maybe 2 inches, not enough to see inside, but more than enough for sound to carry into the hallway. I was just walking past, but their voices stopped me cold. Chloe first, all fired up, algorithms going crazy. Already past 80,000 views and climbing. Comments are blowing up. This is going to cover the honeymoon and then some. We might actually make money off this wedding. Matthew's voice, lazy and smug with that entitled tone I'd heard way too many times, told you she wouldn't fight back. Mom's soft. She cries for a bit and then forgives everyone because she can't deal with conflict. That's just who she is. She'd rather eat the damage than make anyone uncomfortable. Chloe laughed. The one that made my skin crawl the first time I heard it at a family dinner 2 years ago. Your dad's going to hand over that check no matter what. He spent his whole life writing checks to make up for being gone all the time. Guilt's basically his whole deal. You push the button and money comes out. We get the wedding gift. We get him to co-sign the mortgage because his credit's perfect and the content money pays off the cards. Easy. We're set for the next 3 years, at least. I stood real still against the wall. The co-sign. That was news to me. Matthew had come to me 5 weeks ago about co-signing his mortgage application. Said his credit wasn't where the bank needed it. Said it was just a technicality. He'd been all charming about it. I'd agreed because that's what I'd always done. Write the check, sign the paper, bail him out. Now I got the full picture. The $25,000 wedding gift wasn't a gift. It was a shakedown. And the cosign was a setup. Matthew's credit was wrecked from defaulting on car loans and business credit lines. If he defaulted on this mortgage, I'd be stuck with $385,000 on a house I'd never live in. They'd been planning this for months. Chloe kept going, dripping with that satisfied contempt. Your parents are basically ATMs with heartbeats. You press the guilt button and money comes out. It's worked every time for 10 years. Why would today be different? Your mom's probably already practicing her forgiveness speech in her head. That woman would apologize to someone who stabbed her. Matthew laughed low and mean and satisfied. That's my girl. Always thinking ahead. This is why I love you. I turned and walked away before they could open the door. I had what I needed, more than I wanted, honestly. But knowing is half the battle, even when it stings. Back in the bedroom, I didn't touch Chloe's phone or the hidden camera. Instead, I pulled up the livestream platform on my own phone and found Chloe's public channel through a simple search of her username. Her video was still up, riding the algorithm, getting more views by the minute. The thumbnail showed her face with some exaggerated shocked expression and text overlay, "Mother-in-law makeover gone wrong." I screen recorded the entire 41-minute video directly from her public page, timestamped by the platform, unedited, captured exactly as she'd posted it to her followers. Then I went through the comments section. Hundreds of reactions. Most were laughing emojis, fire emojis, savage, and queen energy replies from her fans. But scattered in there were dozens of people asking real questions. Did the mother consent? This seems like assault. Is this real? Someone should call the cops. This doesn't seem legal. I screenshot everything. Built a folder on my phone labeled with the date. At 8 a.m., Robert pulled into the venue's service entrance in his old pickup truck. I'd texted him the address and a quick rundown. He'd been on the road within 10 minutes of getting my email. I met him at the side door near the kitchen. He was carrying a professional evidence camera, a notebook, and a small kit bag. Old habits die hard. He looked at my face and didn't ask questions. Just followed me upstairs without a word. When he saw the bathroom, he let out a long breath through his teeth. Stood in the doorway for about 15 seconds, taking it in. Then he got to work. He photographed everything from multiple angles. He bagged the clippers, same with the note, handling both with gloves. Tagged everything with dates, times, and location markers. All of it would go to my attorney for safekeeping or to responding officers if the case went that direction. When he finished, he looked at me with an expression I knew well. "You're going to file a formal report and you're going to need a lawyer today, not next week. I know someone who handles exactly this kind of thing, civil and criminal. She's fast and she doesn't mess around." He texted me a contact, a woman named Sarah Jenkins. Specialized in personal injury, intentional torts, and privacy violation. Had a reputation for being relentless. I called her at 8:20 a.m., explained the situation in under 4 minutes. She asked 3 clarifying questions, then said she could have preservation notices drafted and sent by 10 a.m. if I got her the documentation within the hour. Robert stayed with Eleanor while I dealt with the logistics. The kind of presence that makes people feel safe without needing conversation. I met the venue manager, Michael, in the main hall at 9 a.m. Late 50s, silver hair cut short. He showed up with a tablet and a folder of vendor contracts, looking a little worried, but not alarmed. That was about to change. I pointed to a camera mounted above the entrance arch that hadn't been there during yesterday's rehearsal dinner. Then another near the garden doors, hidden inside a decorative light fixture. Then a third, tucked inside a floral arrangement on a marble pedestal. Who signed off on these? I asked. Michael's face tightened. He started scrolling through his tablet, pulling up permits, consent forms, vendor agreements, checking dates and signatures. The commercial broadcast permit had been filed by Chloe. Signed by Chloe. The venue authorization form for external production equipment was also signed by Chloe. No property owner signature anywhere. No co-signature from the person who'd actually paid for the venue. I pulled up the venue contract on my phone. The one I'd signed and paid for 7 months ago when we'd booked this date. Section 12, Paragraph 4, commercial filming, streaming, or broadcast activity conducted on venue premises requires express written consent from both venue management and the contracting party securing the reservation. My name was on that contract, my signature, my $6,500 deposit, and $18,000 balance payment. Chloe had filed fake authorization documents. She'd forged venue consent by signing forms she had no right to sign. Michael looked up from his tablet with the face of a man who just realized he was going to spend the next year and a half answering lawyers' questions. "This is a big problem," he said. "It's about to be her problem," I said. "I want every piece of broadcast equipment off this property within 1 hour. Every crew member gone, no exceptions. And I need your complete security footage from 5 a.m. to now, preserved and copied to a drive for my attorney. She'll be sending a formal preservation request within the hour. But I want you to get started now." "I'll have facilities on it right away," Michael said. "And I'll personally make sure the footage is protected." By 9:45 a.m., the production company was packing up fast. For broadcast cameras, 2 lighting rigs hidden as decorations, audio equipment stuffed in flowers, a mobile streaming van behind the catering tent, 12 crew members moving double time. The production coordinator found me in the garden. "Sir, we have contracts. There's going to be legal issues if we don't deliver." I handed him Sarah Jenkins' business card. "Your contract is with someone who committed permit fraud. You've been trespassing for commercial purposes without valid authorization. You have 45 minutes to clear out. After that, I'm calling the cops." He stared at me, doing the math, then turned and started yelling at his crew to move faster. At 10:10 a.m., Sarah called to confirm the preservation notices had been sent via email and certified mail to Chloe's management company, the streaming platform hosting her content, and the production company. Everything was legally locked down. Any deletion of relevant content would trigger penalties and potential criminal charges for evidence tampering. At 10:30 a.m., the last production vehicle pulled out of the venue driveway. At 10:50 a.m., Chloe finally noticed something was off. I was doing a final walkthrough of the garden paths, checking for any cables or gear the crew might have left behind in their rush, when I heard her screaming near the catering tent. Something about production value and somebody getting fired. And this being sabotage. She found me 10 minutes later, storming across the lawn in her white bridal robe, hair still in curlers, face red with fury. Chloe was beautiful in that specific way that social media loves. The kind of face that photographs great from any angle. She'd learned early how to use that beauty as a weapon. How to make people want to please her just by being in the room. That never worked on me. "Where is my production team?" she demanded, stopping about 6 feet from me with her hands on her hips. I looked at her the way I'd look at a busted pressure valve. "Gone. Venue policy. Your permits were fake. You forged authorization documents you had no legal right to sign." Her eyes went wide with fake shock, then narrowed. "You can't do this. It's my wedding, my content, my career. Matthew's going to what?" I said, cutting her off. "Explain how this video was supposed to pay for your honeymoon? Explain why I should co-sign a $385,000 mortgage for someone who thinks attacking his mother is a business strategy?" She went completely still. "Yeah, I heard everything this morning. Every word about the guilt button. About ATMs with heartbeats. About how Eleanor would apologize to someone who stabbed her." Her mouth opened. For the first time since I'd met her, she had no comeback. "You're overreacting." It was content. "Her hair will grow back. You're being totally unreasonable." "A bit?" I said. "You assaulted a sleeping woman, streamed it to 52,000 people, mocked how she looks, set up hidden cameras to catch her reaction. That's not content. We're pursuing charges, and you're about to find out what that costs." I walked away. I was done talking. Behind me, she shouted something about lawyers and Matthew handling this and ruining the most important day of her life. I didn't look back. The ceremony started at noon without broadcast cameras, without the live stream, without the money-making scheme that had been months in the making. Just a regular wedding. Family, friends, a handful of Chloe's influencer buddies looking annoyed and bored. Eleanor and I sat in the front row on the groom's side. I'd wrapped a silk scarf around her head that morning, navy blue with a subtle geometric pattern. She looked dignified, put together. Robert sat 3 rows back, dressed in a dark suit, watching the room like he was still on duty. He'd agreed to stay for the reception, said he wanted to see how things went down. Matthew's cousin, Emily, sat on the bride's side, which told me something about where her loyalties had shifted over the years. Emily was 28, worked in corporate event planning in Baltimore, and had introduced Matthew to Chloe at some networking thing 3 years ago. She'd been closer to Matthew than to us since he was a teenager, part of a younger generation that grew up together while I was working overseas. But I noticed her face when she first saw Eleanor's scarf. Chloe walked down the aisle with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Every few steps, her expression would slip for a split second, showing the rage underneath before she pasted the act back on. Matthew followed behind her, jaw tight, shooting looks at me like a dog that knows it's about to get punished, but doesn't know when or how. The ceremony went on. Vows, rings. The officiant, some young minister neither of them actually knew, said the usual stuff about love and commitment and building a life together. I wasn't listening. I was watching the 2 venue security guys that Michael had stationed by the reception hall doors at my request, watching Sarah's paralegal, Lisa, sitting at a back table with a manila envelope in her bag, watching Emily's face as she picked up on the tension filling the room. Everything was in place. The reception kicked off at 1:15 p.m. First course. Small talk, toasts from people who had no clue what had happened that morning. Chloe working the room like nothing was wrong, performing for a crowd half the size she'd planned for, air-kissing friends, and taking congratulations like a pro. At 2 p.m., Matthew stood up and clinked his glass. He thanked everyone for coming, thanked Chloe for being his partner in everything, thanked Eleanor and me for our unwavering support through the years. Then it was my turn. Father of the groom, traditional toast. I stood up, straightened my jacket, walked to the small podium they'd set up near the head table, picked up the wireless microphone. The room went quiet. 100 faces looking at me, waiting for the standard speech about love and family and bright futures. I'll keep this short, I said. Before we go any further, there's something everyone here needs to know about what this celebration is really about. I nodded to Michael, standing near the venue's presentation system. The screen behind the head table lit up. I played exactly 26 seconds of carefully picked footage, Chloe walking into the bathroom in the dim morning light. Eleanor asleep in the bed, visible through the mirror. The clippers in Chloe's hand. Chloe approaching the bed with a smile. Eleanor waking up confused and scared. The first swipe across her scalp. Eleanor crying out. Chloe laughing right at the camera. Wedding makeover time. Out with the old, in with the bold. I stopped it there. Dead silence. Someone near the back dropped their fork. The sound echoed. This morning, my wife was assaulted while she slept. Hair she kept for 29 years was cut off and streamed to 52,000 strangers for entertainment. We filed a police report and are cooperating with the investigation. Chloe was on her feet, face white as her dress, mouth opening and closing with nothing coming out. The $25,000 wedding gift Eleanor and I had set aside has been redirected. As of 11 a.m. today, that money is in a trust controlled only by Eleanor. Matthew and Chloe get nothing from us. The mortgage cosign I agreed to last month has been formally pulled. My attorney filed the paperwork this morning. Matthew finally found his voice. It cracked on the first word. Dad, come on. This is crazy. It was a joke. A prank. You're completely overreacting. I looked at him. My son, the stranger wearing his face. You told Chloe your mother wouldn't fight back because she's soft. You said guilt is my whole operating system. You called us ATMs with heartbeats. You said she'd apologize to someone who stabbed her. I heard every word through your door this morning. His face went red. He had nothing. I nodded toward Lisa at the back table. She stood, walked to the head table, calm as could be, and placed the manila envelope right in front of Chloe. Chloe, you've been served. Civil complaint for assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, invasion of privacy, and fraud. There's also a request for a temporary restraining order waiting on a judge. Until then, you're being formally notified that contact with Eleanor isn't allowed. Venue security will enforce that today. Chloe grabbed the envelope, ripped it open. Her hands were shaking as she read the first page. She looked up at me with pure hatred. This is insane. You can't do this. Matthew, do something. Matthew just stood there, frozen. His whole life, someone else had always fixed his problems. Now, there was nobody left to call. From the bride's side of the room, Emily suddenly stood up. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. I'm not staying for this. She looked straight at Chloe. I introduced you to this family. I vouched for you. I told them you were good for Matthew, and this is what you did? Then she looked at Eleanor, then at me. I'm sorry. I had no idea she could do something like this. I should have figured it out sooner. She walked out without looking back. The room exploded. People standing up, phones coming out, questions getting shouted, someone wanting to know what was going on, someone else saying they needed to leave now. I set the microphone down on the podium and walked back to Eleanor. Held out my hand. She stood smoothly. We walked toward the exit together. Heads up. The security guys stepped forward when Chloe tried to follow, blocking her path. Ma'am, please stay back. The family asked for no contact. I heard her screaming something about this not being over, about lawyers, about ruining her life. I didn't turn around. We drove home that afternoon in separate cars. Robert followed in his pickup, said he'd stay at our place for a few days in case Matthew or Chloe tried anything reckless. I didn't argue. Having him there felt right. The fallout started within hours. Emily texted me that evening around 9 p.m. She'd recorded the last 3 minutes of my speech on her phone after realizing what was about to happen. She sent me the video with a message, use this however you need to. I'm done protecting him. I should have seen what she was years ago. Then she sent me something else, a folder of screenshots. Text conversations between her and Chloe going back 18 months. Chloe asking Emily for info about our finances, our property, our health, our retirement accounts. Chloe calling Eleanor the obstacle and Matthew the access point. Chloe joking about how easy it would be to manage us once they controlled Matthew's slice of any future inheritance. Emily had been feeding Chloe information for over a year. She'd thought it was harmless gossip between future family members. Girl talk, bonding. Now she understood what it actually was, intel gathering for a long-term money grab. I forwarded everything to Sarah that night. Within a week, Chloe's original live stream got yanked from the platform. Policy violation for non-consensual violence and harassment. Her management company, some boutique agency that handled mid-tier lifestyle creators, dropped her the following Thursday after their legal team looked at the complaint. Her main skincare sponsor killed their contract, citing brand alignment concerns. A clothing deal she'd been working on went completely silent. Her follower count started dropping fast. The comment sections on her remaining posts turned toxic. Every video she uploaded got buried in negative reactions. People she'd worked with unfollowed her without saying a word. The friends who'd come to the wedding vanished overnight. Nobody wanted to be linked to her. The civil case moved faster than I expected. Chloe's lawyer tried to get it thrown out as a family dispute. The judge said no. Discovery was brutal. We got her financial records, communication logs, content strategy documents. She'd been planning the makeover reveal for 4 months. Had notes about shock value optimization and engagement ceiling analysis. Sarah also subpoenaed Matthew's communications. Found 8 months of texts between him and Chloe planning how to get money out of us, how to work the childhood absence angle, how Eleanor was too scared of conflict to push back. Those texts went into evidence. The settlement came 6 months later. Chloe paid $42,000 in damages and legal fees. Agreed to a permanent injunction against any content featuring Eleanor. Agreed to remove all existing content that mentioned or showed any member of our family. The no-contact order was made permanent by the court. Matthew tried to reach me 9 times during those 6 months. I didn't answer any of the calls, didn't listen to voicemails, had Sarah send a formal letter stating that all future contact should go through her office. He never once asked about his mother. I confirmed this with Sarah after looking at the communications log. Every message, every voicemail, every attempt was about himself, his situation, his money problems, his losses. Not one word about Eleanor. Robert checked on us every few weeks during that stretch. He'd drive over on Saturday mornings, help me with yard work, sit on the back porch with Eleanor while she drank tea. He just showed up. That's worth more than most people realize. For months after the wedding, I sat down with our estate attorney and rebuilt everything from scratch. The will, both versions, mine and Eleanor's, the trust documents, the beneficiary names on every retirement account and life insurance policy, the transfer on death paperwork for the house, the cars, the investment accounts. Matthew was taken off all of it. Not reduced, not limited, gone. If Eleanor and I both died tomorrow, he would get exactly nothing. Everything would go to a charitable foundation we set up in Eleanor's mother's name, giving trade school scholarships to first-generation students in Maryland. I changed passwords on every financial account we had, set up fraud alerts and unusual activity notifications on all banking and credit services. Moved Eleanor's separate inheritance from her parents, about $85,000 in various accounts, into a trust only she controlled with no beneficiary rights for anyone else. Updated our life insurance to remove Matthew as secondary beneficiary. Updated our healthcare proxies and powers of attorney to take him off as emergency contact. Updated every document that had his name on it. Then I wrote a certified letter explaining every change. A summary of the new will setup. A statement that our financial relationship with Matthew was done for good. A note that any future contact should go through attorneys. Sent it certified mail with signature required. He showed up at our house 3 days later. No warning. Around 7 p.m., standing on the front porch with his hands jammed in his jacket pockets, looking smaller and less sure of himself than I'd seen him in years. Robert was there. He stepped out onto the porch before I could answer, putting himself between Matthew and the front door. Matthew, you gotta leave. Your father sent you a formal letter. Any communication goes through lawyers now. Matthew's face twisted with frustration. This is my parents' house. You can't tell me I'm not allowed to. I can tell you that showing up unannounced after getting formal legal papers is a bad move, Robert said. I can tell you that your mother has made clear she doesn't want to see you. Matthew looked past Robert at me, standing in the doorway behind him. Dad, please, just give me 5 minutes. Let me explain. I looked at my son, the boy I'd raised, the man who'd helped plan his mother's humiliation and streamed it to strangers for money. There's nothing to explain. You made your choices. These are the consequences. That's how it works. I went back inside and closed the door. Robert stayed on the porch, arms crossed, until Matthew's car pulled out of the driveway and was gone. Then he came inside and sat down without saying anything. 3 weeks later, Eleanor went to a salon downtown and had them trim the remaining patchy growth into a clean silver pixie cut. She looked in the mirror for a long time when they were done, running her fingers through the new style, turning her head to see it from different angles. Then she smiled. The first genuine one I'd seen since that bathroom floor. She started taking charge of stuff she'd handed off to me for decades. Opened her own checking account at a different bank. Set up her own investment portfolio with money from her trust. Started going to financial literacy classes at the library. Made her own calls about managing money without asking what I thought. 29 years of marriage, and I'd never seen her like this. 2 years have passed since that morning in Annapolis. Chloe's content career never bounced back. Her follower count leveled off somewhere around 60,000, down from 2 million at her peak. She's doing sponsored posts for discount supplement companies now, budget skincare brands, affiliate links for products nobody's heard of. She tried to pivot after the wedding footage spread. Fitness content, cooking tutorials, home organization stuff. Nothing stuck. The wedding video follows her everywhere. Every time she gets any traction, someone posts it in her comments. Every brand that thinks about working with her runs a basic search and finds the story. The settlement is public record for anyone who looks. Matthew and Chloe never got the Alexandria house. Couldn't close without the gift money. Couldn't get financing without my cosign. They're renting a 2-bedroom apartment in Waldorf now, 45 minutes from where they thought they'd be living. 45 minutes from the life they'd been planning to build on our backs. Matthew lost his job at the logistics company about 8 months after the wedding. Official reason was position elimination due to restructuring. Real reason, according to Emily, was office gossip. Someone had found the footage and passed it around. HR didn't want the headache. They managed him out quietly during the next round of layoffs. That's how these things usually go. Nobody fires you for something like this directly. They just find a reason. He bounced around for a few months after that. Applied to a bunch of companies in his field. 2 of them went cold after the interview stage. No explanation. He's doing warehouse work now. Night shift at a distribution center. Emily stayed in touch with us occasionally after everything settled down. Nothing regular, just updates when something worth knowing happened. She felt responsible for bringing Chloe into our family. I told her more than once that she wasn't the one who made the choices that mattered. She seems to have accepted that. Matthew sends letters sometimes. No return address. Like he thinks that makes them feel more personal. Always the same general stuff. He's had time to think about his mistakes. He hopes we can figure out a way to fix things someday. He never mentions his mother. I read them once when they show up. Then I file them in a drawer. Documentation in case he ever claims we refused all contact. Last month, Emily called to pass along a message. Matthew had asked her to tell us he wanted to come to Thanksgiving this year. Said he missed being part of the family. Said he'd changed. Said everyone deserves another shot. I told her to tell him no. Some doors don't reopen just because the person who slammed them decides to start knocking. She called back an hour later. Said he didn't take it well. Said he couldn't understand why I wouldn't give him another chance to prove himself. I felt nothing. Eleanor and I had dinner last week at a restaurant on the water. At some point during dinner, she reached across the table and took my hand. "Thank you," she said, "for that morning, for everything after, for not trying to smooth it over or keep the peace." I shrugged. "You'd do the same for me." She thought about that for a second. "I would now. I'm not sure I would have 2 years ago. Back then, I probably would have tried to keep everyone happy. Act like everything was fine so nobody had to deal with consequences. And now I get that keeping the peace like that just means eating all the damage yourself so other people don't have to face what they've done. It's not noble. It's not generous. It's just slow self-destruction dressed up as kindness." That was probably the most honest thing either of us had said in 30 years of marriage. I've thought a lot about how we ended up here. About all the years of writing checks and making excuses and hoping problems would just fix themselves. About the son I raised to see his parents as resources instead of people. I don't have clean answers. I don't have a tearful reunion scene where everyone learns lessons and grows as people. What I have is this: boundaries, clear ones, enforced ones, the kind I should have set 20 years ago. Loving someone doesn't mean you let them destroy you. Sacrifice isn't supposed to be a one-way street. And silence, when it goes on too long, stops being patience and becomes permission. Eleanor and I drove home that night with the windows cracked open. Neither of us needed to fill the silence. Just two people who survived something ugly and came out the other side still together, still choosing each other. What's one boundary you wish you'd set sooner in your own life?